It looks like Dragon Ball is going back to Super, and that is going to be our future with the incredible moral arc. So today, I want to say goodbye to Daima by trying to get the world record in the Daima DLC for Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, which is not one, but two different speedruns, since the DLC released in two different parts. So we could be getting two world records today. The first run is going to be all about the third demon world, which means a lot of running, a lot of horde battles, culminating in an awesome fight against the Tamagami 3. And the second part is going to give us a playable Vegeta and put him up against the hardest boss fight for speedrunners out of all the DLCs so far, before we completely break the run by eating some good food that buffs our damage enough to delete Goma's health bar faster than we were definitely supposed to. But we begin our part 1 speedrun by hitting the skip prologue button right here. A few cutscenes later, we hit the ground running into a dinosaur camp, and here we must catch 3 different dinosaurs for our lunch. But before we're able to enjoy them, we hear a scream and decide to go check it out, triggering our first combat encounter of the run. There are going to be a lot of tutorial messages during these fights, but we're able to throw our assist attacks before the messages even pop up. This fight is pretty simple. It's against these 3 trolls, and we basically just cancel our melee combo, restarting it over and over. This is something very common in Dragon Ball Z Kakarot speedruns. If you've ever seen any of my other speedruns on any DLC, you've probably seen me restart these melee combos over and over again. But in these fights, it's also important to use our assists every time they're off cooldown. In this case, because it just makes the fight go faster, but in other cases, we are actually building up to a Z combo, but more on that in future fights. With this one out of the way, we must run back to where we came from. We can finally eat those dinosaurs and end the first day in the demon realm. We wake up the next day and start heading to Kadan's castle to find a new plane. But on the way there, we find someone in a mask being attacked by the demon world police. So Goku decides to intervene. This time we don't have any assists, so we surge from the very start. While surged up, we are gonna land a couple of full melee combos, and that's because the final hit of this combo is cinematic and deals a ton of damage. Unfortunately, we got hit by a projectile that stuns us in place for a while, so this fight is definitely not perfect. But once we are free from the stun, we're gonna spend all of our meters spamming Kamehamehas before going back to hitting them with melee strikes. Once the surge ends, we go back to doing our regular combo resets while dodging all of the shots being fired at us. It's a fight where you really gotta stay on your toes because it's hard to predict what the NPCs are gonna do. But now that we've handled the demon cops, we find out that the masked Majin was actually a girl? She happens to be the daughter of King Kadan, so she joins us in our journey to the castle. And that means it's sprinting time again. Speedrunning takes a lot of focus, a lot of research, a lot of failed runs, which is why I make sure I always get a good night's sleep before attempting any of it. And that just got a whole lot easier with today's sponsor, Manta Sleep. This is a Manta Sleep mask, and it is simply the best sleeping mask I've ever held or used. The tech behind this is really impressive. Manta Sleep masks are more comfortable than any masks I've ever used, and they completely block all lights because of these eye cups. They keep your eyelids from touching the mask itself, giving it the comfort we just talked about, and completely stop the light from coming in from all sides. I could blast these lights to output the power of the sun, and if I put on my sleep mask, I actually see nothing but darkness. My eyes are fully open. It is pitch black in here. The comfort also comes from its infinite adjustability. You can tighten the strap in the back as much or as little as you want, but the eye cups also come— oh my god, the sun, hang on. Okay, so the eye cups, they also completely come off, so you can just put them back on according to your eye distance to make it even more comfortable. It's just like super customizable. If you click the link in the description, you'll find their website has a few different masks. This one right here is the Manta Sound Sleep Mask because it comes with its own Bluetooth speakers. But even with Bluetooth speakers, it's still comfortable for side sleepers like myself because the speakers are fully adjustable, so you can just put them wherever you want. The sleep masks come with a 60-day money-back guarantee, which is very important to me because with stuff like this, you really got to try it for yourself to know if it's a good fit. And if for some reason it's not, you can wear it for 59 nights and return it and get your money back. So head over to Manta Sleep using my link down below and use code Globku if you want to get a 10% discount. I don't know why you wouldn't want to get the 10% discount, but thanks Manta Sleep for sponsoring this video. And before you know it, we've arrived at Kadan's castle. King Kadan wants to test our strength against his troops, so we open with a couple of beams if we're able to catch multiple targets with them. After we run out of meter, it's time to go for some melee fighting. This fight is a bit unique as it's the only battle where you're building up a Z blast as you defeat enemies. It's kind of like a Z combo, but you don't have assists this time around. We keep building it over time, and as soon as we get it to level 3, we can hit the button and blast a total of 78 enemies in a single attack. That is also going to reset our Z-Blast gauge, meaning that this is a good time to simply key charge and make use of our surge. I wanted to start with some melee attacks, but this soldier was being very annoying, so I went into my beam spam first, leaving the melee until after. There are a lot of area attacks we must avoid during this encounter. Getting hit by any of them is actually going to trigger a tutorial message and make us lose a bit of time. So it's important to keep taking these soldiers down, but also to avoid all of their elemental attacks. This time we triggered the Z-Blast as soon as we reach level 1 because there aren't that many enemies left. In fact, after that big attack is done, we only gotta deal with the 2 final elite soldiers. They have a lot more health than the rest of the enemies here, so I try to burn down the first one as soon as possible, first with some beams and then with some melee attacks. For the final one, I key charge here and there since the dude is gonna keep doing this spinny attack and you just cannot interrupt it. And if you have enough ki, then you can finish them off with a final Kamehameha. We've got a pretty big sprint after this, but we make a very important stop in this town that's on the way. We quickly sell a statue that we have in our inventory, and that gives us enough money to buy a ton of ingredients as fast as we can. But since we made a stop anyway, this is also a good time to do some menuing. We're gonna level up some of Goku's skills. First up, we'll level up his Kamehameha, as well as unlocking both Full Tilt and Merciless. These are 2 passive buffs, with Full Tilt buffing our damage by 100% when our ki is full. And Merciless just buffs our damage to lower level enemies by 20%, and every enemy we'll fight from here on out is actually a lower level than us. We keep sprinting, we keep running, making sure we dodge all of the encounters and the dinosaurs roaming here in the demon world until we find this campfire where we'll make another quick stop. We're gonna use half of our ingredients we just bought to cook a meal that buffs our attacks even further. Those were a lot of stops, but all of these buffs are gonna stack up and make every encounter from now on much faster. We make it to this old man that has a sky seed that we can use, but the cops are here, so we have our first horde battle with a party. The idea here is simple. We take down everyone with 1 or 2 melee hits, building up our combo, but the most important thing to do is to use our assists on cooldown. That's gonna allow us to unleash this Z combo once their gauges are full, and that takes down dozens of enemies at once. Because we now have a buff to our damage when our ki is full, we don't really use any beams because that would require us to key charge again and lose a bunch of time. And if we need to use our defensive bubble to escape any attacks, it's important to fill up your ki again right away. So even against stronger enemies here, we do nothing but melee. And once our assists have filled up their gauge again, we unleash another Z combo, bringing out the final 2 enemies of this horde. This is when we finally charge our surge and say screw our ki. Since these are the last enemies, it's worth using our Kamehameha on them since we're not gonna have to waste time charging up our ki again because, well, the battle will simply be over. We're finally able to use our Sky Seed, which takes us to a new region where we have to go for another huge run. This run ends at a certain cave that has a Minotaur in it. We don't see the Minotaur because we skipped some cutscenes, but here we finally have our first 1v1 boss battle, and it's against Gordito. This is a fight with 2 phases. This first one feels like we're both holding back. In fact, I think I could have finished it with a beam right there, but I didn't for some reason, which delayed this fight for a little bit. But it wasn't too bad. We got our beam off immediately afterwards, and that triggers phase 2. Now we're playing as a Super Saiyan, and Gordito is a level that will be the top comment in this video for sure. And we simply go for melee attacks here because our 2 passive buffs and our food buff are completely destroying his health bar with each punch. So before you know it, this fight is just done, and we just cleared one of only 2 boss fights this DLC has to offer. Speaking of comments, I bet a lot of you are gonna try to correct me on Gordito's name, but you can hear it from Goku's mouth right here.
Hey Giorgio? How far till we reach the next village?
Oh, Giorgio. Actually, that's my bad. Sorry, guys. Goku, Panji, the Supreme Kai, and Giorgio reach another campfire, and since our food buff is about to run out, we gotta eat again to refresh it. Otherwise, it's not gonna reach the final boss. We make our way to a town that's full of demon cops, where we have our final horde battle of this run. This plays pretty much exactly the same as the other one did. Same strategy, same assists. The enemies are a bit stronger, but honestly, they don't feel like it because we are a much higher level now. It's still important to dodge all of their elemental attacks though, as getting hit by a single one of them will trigger the tutorial message, and this is the final fight where we actually must avoid getting touched by those attacks. And just as I say that, I get hit by these fireballs. So here's the tutorial message, and we skip it. We cannot skip it faster than that. Every tutorial pop-up has a bit of a cooldown before you can hit the skip button, so it does cost us 2 seconds. But just like last time, the final Z combo brings us down to the final 2 elite soldiers, at which point we surge, and we can spam some beams to take them down. We actually hit both of them with the first beam, so they go down really quickly here. Only one boss fight to go, and it's probably the highlight of this DLC, so let's not delay. Tamagami 3 is another two-phase fight, and in boss fights like these, you usually want to stun the bosses, but this Goku doesn't have any good stun abilities, unfortunately, so we just gotta power through with damage. Even though the Tamagami is gonna surge early and be completely armored throughout this whole fight, we just gotta take the hits or power through them and keep hitting him with as many melee attacks as we can to take him down before his surge is even done. We don't use Super Saiyan or any skills because those drain our ki, and remember, we have a damage buff if our ki is full. But that's phase 1. For phase 2, we actually start in Super Saiyan, meaning our ki isn't draining during the transformation. The strategy doesn't change too much at the start though, we just hit him with a lot of melee combos and power through any of his stuff. During his surge though, we're gonna find an opening to surge ourselves. We keep the melee attacks up until his surge runs out, and that's when we unleash the beam spam, taking his health down to 3600, because this is when he's gonna do a cinematic attack, which we can quickly break with a beam and stop the timer once we hit the square button right here. 34 minutes and 39 seconds, that is a new world record, beating the previous one by 16 seconds. This is infamous right now.
I have been bested.
But that's only the first run, so let's start part 2, which has a lot less running, but still some tight menuing for food and buffs, and a lot more boss fights, including probably the hardest one for speedrunners out of any DLCs in the past. And the timer starts when we hit yes in this menu right here. And before you know it, we're fighting Tamagami 3 again? Yeah, this DLC starts with the exact same fight we just ended, but now we don't have any of the upgrades or buffs that we had before. So we can use our defensive bubble more freely to stay in Tamagami's face and deal as much damage as possible. Once his surge ends, we activate our own and throw a couple of beams, which is gonna interrupt the surge once more. I can never interrupt the surge animation, but he doesn't get to do much in his surge because we quickly punch him down to that cinematic beam, only this time we interrupt him by mashing square a little bit more instead of throwing a Kamehameha. Now, outside of this boss fight, the start of this run is actually really boring, because what's ahead of us now is almost 10 minutes of skipping cutscenes and fast-forwarding dialogue. There are a couple of gameplay moments. I mean, we make this very small run in OG Namek. We must actually avoid getting too close to that treasure chest right there, or we're gonna get a tutorial pop up about treasures, and we definitely want to avoid that 2-second loss. Then we get some more cutscenes, there's Supreme Kai's butt, and then we have a little fishing moment in this planet. Fishing is completely RNG. Fish can spawn closer or further away from your fishing pole, and they can notice you faster or slower. This one was kind of average, so I'm not too mad about that. But other than that, it's just a lot of time of waiting for cutscenes to end, so imagine having to go through this every time you have to start your run. This being at the very start made it very demotivating, and maybe that's why I enjoyed part 1 a lot better, but if we didn't have this section, I think part 2 would be the most fun for sure. Once we arrive at the Tamagami Cliff, things finally pick up a little bit. We do a little bit of running, we get the campfire tutorial, we're gonna need to cook later, so this was gonna happen one way or another, and we make our way up the hill to fight against Tamagami 2. And this first phase of the battle is definitely the toughest speedrunning fight of all the DLC. We are playing as Vegeta this time around, and we transform right away into Super Saiyan 2. We're gonna land full melee combos. For some reason, Tamagami is able to dodge our combo even though we didn't stop it. He just left mid-combo. This time, we land a full combo, we are able to super dash and get another combo started, and this, I think, is the first one that he doesn't even try to interrupt. This fourth combo is gonna trigger his surge phase, we're gonna try to bubble, we react a little bit too late, and he's gonna enter his surge. Now, our priority here is meter and getting a couple of hits on Tamagami 2. We're not going for damage, we're not going for stun. All we're doing here is preventing his stun gauge from regenerating, which it is going to regenerate if he doesn't get hit for a long period of time. At the same time, we're trying to regenerate as much meter as possible, so I just go for 2 hits into the key finisher, which regenerates some meter for me. That's the end of his surge phase. We're gonna key charge, hit him a couple of times to stop his stun from coming back, and surge ourselves. Now, we need to stun him before he comes back to life, or he could do some attacks that just are impossible to interrupt, and they're gonna delay us forever. The first surge combo does not finish it, which is very, very dangerous, but we are able to get the break afterwards. This break was a lifesaver. We're still gonna finish the surge combo because it's a lot of damage before we go into a Gallic gun spam. The first one is cinematic, so it takes a while, but the second one isn't. We do run out of meter here, but a couple of melee attacks later, we are able to finish the fight. That was a pretty good phase 1 for Tamagami 2. Phase 2 has a really neat trick that makes it a lot easier than Phase 1. We are in Super Saiyan 3 and we are in permanent surge. So what we're going to do is just full surge combos. And after we're done with the first surge combo, we just keep mashing the square button, automatically going into the second surge combo. You'll notice that Vegeta actually goes into the cinematic attack really fast. Tamagami 2 is going to trigger his surge. We're going to keep attacking him. He's going to do some attacks that we have to block here. And afterwards, we just keep going no matter what. We start mashing, we don't stop. He's summoning tornadoes, it doesn't matter. We go into the cutscene and we get the stun. Even if we didn't get the stun, by the way, it would still bring him out of a surge for some reason. It just interrupts it. It's very, very good for the speedrun. So now we do our Gallic Gun spam and go into the melee combo. One should be enough to finish it. That is a perfect Tamagami 2. A fast Tamagami 2 is always a good sign because it's the toughest fight in the whole run. By the way, Vegeta, the answer here is 3. I don't know how he got away with that. We skip a few more cutscenes and it's time to level up some skills. For this run, I level up Goku's Kamehameha all the way to Super Kamehameha level 3. His beam is gonna be insane. I also level up his Super Saiyan and Super Saiyan 2 bonus damage, but I don't get any passive skills this time around since all the bosses we go up against are actually higher or on the same level as us. And the damage we get from Super Saiyan is the same as full tilt, but it actually lets us use Ki. For Vegeta, we level up a melee skill called Prominence Rush, and also level up Super Saiyan 1 and 2. I don't think Super Saiyan 3 is worth it personally. Perfect menuing, it's time to travel into the first demon world. Here we get another big area to run around and explore, kind of like part 1 Daima, but not before our first Horde battle. We use our assists and transform from the start before the tutorial message even pops up, and the strategy is very similar to part 1. We use assists on cooldown and melee rush everyone until you can Z combo. Vegeta actually charges his bar slower than the Supreme Kai, so we end up having to wait for him a lot. But as soon as we have the Z combo ready, we pull the trigger, taking down dozens of enemies and spawning the first bosses. Now, these dudes actually have a decent amount of health, so I don't feel bad going for combo finishers and beams, but that also means that we have to manage our Ki a lot better this time around. The Super Saiyan transformation is constantly draining our Ki, and if we add beams to the mix, we'll be out of Ki before we know it and de-transforming back to base form. But the priority remains throwing assists on cooldown and not dropping the combo because the Z combo is what makes this thing go faster. And after our second Z combo, the final 2 officers spawn, and this is when we go all out, throwing beams and assists at the first officer until he goes down, and then turning our attention to the other one and doing exactly the same. This was a pretty good time for this Horde battle. No time to rest though, because a short run after this, we run into the first base raid. Now, this is not a Horde battle, but a battle against a small group of enemies, including a tank, but your assist can fill up their bar and Z combo all the same, and so I chose to focus on the soldiers first, leaving the tank alone. I popped the assist attacks on cooldown, trying to build up that Z combo as I would in a Horde battle, and take down these foot soldiers one at a time using melee attacks. And we actually take down the final enemy at the same time as we build our Z combo, which we choose to unleash on the tank, taking it down in a single hit. I'm really proud of coming up with this strat. At this point, we have a really long running section. It's probably longer than any running section during part 1, but it's also the only time that we're going to be running during part 2. So we cross the vast deserts of the first demon world as quickly as possible, avoiding all encounters, all treasure chests, and other side activities. It's more than just running the optimal route and trying to cut corners like it's a racing line. We've got a couple of optimal jumps to do as well. Very impressive, huh? Well, if you liked that one, check out how I get stuck in this tree. Yeah, that wasn't supposed to happen. We make a quick stop in this small cave because we also need to do some shopping for food in this run. So we quickly sell some items and buy some Demon World fish parts. And that was the fastest shopping I've ever done, both IRL and in-game. We run a little more until we find this campfire where we're gonna cook a really strong meal that buffs our attack by 150%. This food is what makes this speedrun absolutely broken. A little more running later, we finally make it to Goma's castle, but we can't just walk in. The castle gates are being guarded by another Horde battle. Now, you probably know how this strategy goes by now, but this Horde battle has a big difference, and that's tanks. A tank will spawn after the first Z combo, so I make it a priority to take it down. Targeting it is the first obstacle. Since there are so many enemies, it can take some time to find the tank, but in this attempt it was pretty quick. The reason why tanks are so dangerous is because one of their attacks puts a big electricity field on the ground that will stun anyone that steps on it. And while you can control Goku and avoid that electric puddle, your assists may randomly step on them, and doing so will delay their assist attacks, which will delay your Z combo. That is the worst thing that can happen to you during this fight. So to minimize that risk, I prioritize taking tanks down whenever they spawn. There are still many enemies with elemental attacks in these Horde battles, and because this is technically a separate DLC, you do get a tutorial message the first time you get hit by them, and I was not able to avoid them during this run either. But we're doing such a good job that the next tank actually spawns before we get our second Z combo off. He's floating menacingly. So this time around, instead of focusing down the tank, I'm just going to build up the Z combo with the final assist attack from Vegeta, and by unleashing it, we're not only going to take down the tank, but dozens of other enemies too, bringing out the final 2 elites. We need to do a little bit of key management and some Kamehameha spamming, but we do take them both down with a pretty good time, and that is a wrap on all Horde battles, nothing but cool boss fights from here on out. In fact, up next is one of my favorites, the Discount Ginyu Force. The start of this battle was actually really rough. We transformed into Super Saiyan 2 right away and unleash Prominence Rush on Gamoi, one of the Discount Ginyu Force members. Now, Prominence Rush is supposed to take down one of the members in a single use, but the surge animation actually interrupted it, and so we needed to finish him off with a few more melee strikes. Here, Prominence Rush was attacked from too far away, and Helia survives, so we just do one more attack right there to take him down, but there you go. That member just went down with a single use of Prominence Rush. That start was kind of rough though, so we messed up on key management. We have to transform once again into Super Saiyan 2, but as you just saw, the surge animation is kind of messed up by taking down some of the members mid-animation. They just like give up on it or something. Kadan is the leader of the Discount Ginyu Force. He's the only one that takes 2 Prominence Rushes and a few melee attacks to go down. It's still a pretty fast fight, but that start, if done well, can save us a lot more time. So, not a bad showcase for how to do this fight in theory, but in practice, the start needs to be a lot cleaner. This was the biggest time loss I had in this run. But we shake off mistakes like those because ahead of us are 5 boss battles against Goma. Yeah, 5 of them. But remember, we have a food buff that allows us to just jump this guy and melt his health bar. During this first fight, we throw our assist at the start while we transform, and before their cooldown is back, this Goma is gonna be dead. We do that by hitting him with a couple of melee combos. The last combo, we go for the finisher into a beam, and yes, the assists are back, but there was no time to use them. The fight is already over. The second fight, we start as Super Saiyan 3 Goku, and we go for some melee combo cancels. At some point, Goma is going to interrupt us with an attack. However, depending on the attack he does, it is possible to skip his surge phase. We weren't so lucky this time around. This attack does not allow us to skip, so we deal as much damage as we can, but we're gonna have to sit through a surge animation. Even with a surge though, he doesn't get to do much. We burn through his health with a couple of beams as he sets up some attacks from a distance. Shame we couldn't finish it with one beam alone. We needed to throw a second, but still not a bad Goma phase 2. Now, we did have Surge available during the previous 2 battles, but we chose not to use it. And that's because we are gonna need it for this fight as Super Saiyan 4. We Surge immediately as the fight starts, and you may have noticed before the cinematic started that Goma is shooting some Ki Blasts. So the first thing we gotta do is dodge out of the way and punish Goma with a beam. This is gonna trigger his Surge immediately. As far as I know, there's no way to interrupt it, but we can finish it pretty fast by throwing 2 quick beams after his surge animation is done. With that, we are done with the kid fights. Giorgio is gonna summon the Demon Shenron and restore everyone to their original age. So now, we get to use Adult Vegeta against Goma, and in this fight, you only have to do 1 combo. Unfortunately, I messed up something that easy. I used the wrong finisher, and so this explosive Ki Blast Super missed most of its hits, and the final flash wasn't enough to finish Goma before he surged. So now, I'm gonna have to block a couple of his hits before I'm able to delete him with another final flash. 100% my fault on this one. But all that's left is 1 battle, and this one is gonna be perfect. Adult Super Saiyan 4 Goku. We start with a quick super dash and go into a melee combo. When he reaches this part, we cancel and start it over. This time going for a combo finisher, which is this beam and Dragon Punch. We spam it to do Dragon Punch again, which is gonna make Goma do a spinning move. And we've already finished the fight. He's gonna go into a cinematic attack here that we have to interrupt, and we stop the timer once we hit the square after depleting that bar. 1 punch and stop the timer right there. 37 minutes and 48 seconds. Unfortunately, this time is not enough to beat Infamous to the world record. The knockoff Ginyu Force fight and that final Vegeta mistake would be enough to get that world record, but more than getting first place, I hope this video encourages you to get into anime game speedruns. Everything you saw me do in both of these runs was something that either me or Infamous came up with. There are only 2 people discovering all of this tech, so anyone joining the scene can find something that breaks it even further. For instance, do we need to stop for food twice during part 1, or is there a way to avoid doing that? Can we find any movement tech that would make the running sections any faster? Should I level up a different skill with Vegeta since I only use Prominence Rush in that one boss fight? Should you get a Manta Sleep mask? Well, I know the answer to that one is yes, just don't forget to use my link down below and code Globku for a 10% discount. But I hope to see you guys join these leaderboards with whatever times you get, whether it is a new world record or just a more casual run. Speedruns have made me appreciate anime games in a different way, and they're a great excuse to replay and explore more of the games that I loved playing in the past. And for that reason, if you want more anime games or more speedruns, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. And as always, thank you very much for watching. My name's Globku, and I'll see you next time. Bye.